Oh, hi there. Today, we're going to be building this tiny QRP inline SWR meter from N6ARA. My name's Mike, K8MRD. This is Ham Radio Tube. Here's what it looks like. Tiny little SWR meter. You see your forward power here, that'll light up green. And then you've got indicators 1 to 1, 2 to 1, and 3 to 1. And it's important to know this is not a very high precision instrument. This is more a kit. It's made to give you a general guideline as to where your SWR is. And it's a neat kit to build. So what actual purpose would this serve? Well, number one, there's a lot of radios out there that don't actually have an SWR meter. So this is a good thing to have in line if you're using an antenna, just to make sure that everything is good. If you start seeing red lights, you know you probably have a problem. Second, it's a fun kit to build. It's pretty inexpensive. It's great for someone who's new, who's maybe just getting into soldering, just getting into building things, just getting into ham radio. You know, kits are always fun. Third, think about kids. This is a great activity you could do for getting kids into soldering or ham radio or anything like that. A myriad of different reasons as to why you might want something like this. For me, it's just good old-fashioned fun. So now let's get into the build. First thing we want to do, make sure we have all of our parts. So we're going to have a green length of magnet wire. We're going to have a short length of red magnet wire. We're going to have our bottom, actually this is the top board. And then we're going to have our bottom board. And then we'll also have a female BNC, a male BNC, an itty bitty little toroid. And you'll have a case. Now, I don't know what case you'll get. He sent me a couple. This one says 20 to 80, this one says 10 to 20, and this one doesn't say anything. Now, depending on how many wraps of this toroid you're going to put on it, you can either have it for 20 to 80 meters, or you can have it for 10 to 20 meters. So I'm primarily on 20 meters through 10 meters, so I'm gonna wrap this for that. And basically we're gonna wrap this toroid 20 times with the magnet wire. If you want it for 20 through 80, you would wrap this 25 times. So let's get to wrapping. Let me unwind this magnet wire here. And I'll go ahead and put all our bits and bobs off to the side. Now we'll start by coming in from the top. We want to leave about 2 inches hanging out from the bottom. And we're going to wrap counterclockwise, or anti-clockwise for our friends overseas, even though you're saying it wrong. And let the fun begin. So there's 1, 2, there's 10. We do want to kind of keep these bunched up a little closer, yet still evenly spaced. And we'll do 10 more. 15 and 20. So there we are, 20 wraps. Next we want to just make sure you kind of adjust your windings. You want to cover about 75% of the toroid and just kind of make sure they're evenly spaced. And now I'll just trim away all but a couple inches there. You can see we got plenty of magnet wire left over. Should you make a mistake, you definitely have enough to start over again. Next, we're going to take our red wire, and we actually want to get our soldering iron out. We want to apply some heat and a little bit of solder to the end here. The goal is to melt off this enamel. Now, you could do this with some sandpaper as well, but you should start see it bubbling per the instructions. We'll see how this goes for me. Not very well. Okay, there we are. It's starting to expose the metal. That's taking a while. Fortunately, we don't need much, but we got, maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch of metal exposed there now. And then we take our bottom board, the one that says Mini SWR. It's got a little trim pot and all the LEDs on it. And we're going to insert this from the front. So the top left if you're looking at the front, or the top right if you're coming from the back. And we're gonna solder that right to that pad. I'll take it. That'll work. Then we want to bend this magnet wire over to the center, and we want to make another bend up from there. Something like that. And just have that going straight up. Now we're going to grab our toroid and we're going to fish it over the red wire, but note the orientation is important. So this wire on the right is kind of going through the toroid, and this wire on the left is coming on the outside of the toroid. So the one on the outside we want to have go through this bottom left hole, and the one on the inside we want to have go through the bottom right hole. So we just stick it in and fish our wires through the holes. Like such. And then we're gonna take the red wire and we're gonna kind of loop it over the toroid and bring it into this top right hole. Feed it all the way down, just like that. Next, we can turn it over and solder the remaining 3 wires. Before you do that, it's a good idea to just double check and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, so you don't have to, you know, screw it up. And now I'll just clip the wires with my flush cutters and get to soldering. Beautiful. And we'll just take some isopropyl alcohol and go ahead and just clean off any solder residue, flux. Get it all off of there, get it nice and clean. And that's what we should look like so far. Now, after all our hard work, we want to make sure we have continuity, so we're going to test between the top left and the top right. And that's good. And the bottom left and the bottom right, and we are good. And if you don't have continuity, it could be because the solder didn't melt the enamel off of the wire enough. So just go ahead and apply 5 to 10 seconds of heat to it and try and reflow that solder, and hopefully you'll have a better connection, or a connection at all then. Next, we're going to install the female BNC to the out port of the SWR meter. And the way we need to do that, this will just slide over, so you can see this pad right here. The center conductor is going to slide over that. But it's not a very tight fit, so we need to bend the center conductor down just a little bit so we can get a friction fit with that pad. So we'll give her just a tiny little squeeze there and see how that fits. Not quite. Let's bend her just a little bit more. Let's try that. Okay. That's a little more snug. That's good. And then we'll install the male. Now the male is a little bit different. That should fit, and mine fits just snug without having to bend it. So you may or may not need to bend the center conductor on the male part, but the female you definitely do. And now we can go ahead and solder the center conductor of the BNCs. Whew, there's one. And 2. Let's use a little flux. Get a good flow on that. There we are. I feel better about that now. And again, we'll throw some isopropyl alcohol on there and try and clean up some of that flux as best we can. All right, and there she is. Next, we want to just do a fit check with this bottom board. And note the mini SWR, that should be facing up. If you have it the wrong way, it says wrong side. So we want to just make sure that this fits in between here. So the posts of the BNC are inside those little grooves there. Also note this hole here, that's our trim pot. So we can adjust this when we're done and make sure that we have it calibrated properly. So Mine fits properly. If yours doesn't, you might need to reheat the solder and kind of adjust the BNC a little bit or just bend it. So mine fits good. Now we can move on to the next step, which is soldering the ground lugs to the top board here. And done. And if you have excellent solder skills like I do, you should have 4 nice, beautiful, shiny solder joints. And then clean. And there we have that. Now before we go ahead and solder this bottom board on, we're actually going to calibrate this. And you can kind of see there's 2 little dots on there and there, kind of left and right, bottom left and right. So we're going to use a flathead screwdriver and we're going to adjust this potentiometer. Now because I built this for 20 through 10, the instructions say this will most likely be aligned towards the left side of the board. If you built it for 20 through 80, it's probably going to be aligned with the 2 bottom dots to the bottom of the board. So we're going to hook this up to a dummy load. I've got my ICOM 705 here, and we're going to transmit a CW carrier between 3 and 5 watts. You don't want to go over 5 watts because this is only rated for 5 watts. And we're going to take a look at what these LEDs do, and then we'll calibrate it accordingly. And of course, make sure you're using a 50 ohm dummy load. I'm using Carlos here, which is a 1500 watt MFJ 264 model. So right now, I realize it's kind of hard to see, but I've got the bottom 2 dots aligned with the very bottom. And as we key up just on 20 meters here, let me flip this over, you can see the green light and the red light are on, and the 2-to-1 and the 3-to-1 red lights are just kind of, they're not glowing bright, but they are glowing. So we're gonna go ahead and, just as the instructions said, if we move the 2 dots over, so they're kind of facing to the left, watch what happens now. Now we only have the green light and the red 1.1-to-1 SWR, and that's what we're looking for calibration. Now, the interesting thing, if I go down to 160 meters, I get 1-to-1. If I go to 80 meters, I get 1-to-1. If I go to 40 meters, 1-to-1. 30 meters, all the way across the board. So either I screwed this up or I magically made this wider than what it is supposed to be used for. But from 160 meters all the way to 10 meters, we're looking good. So I'm gonna say that works. And just to show, this is without the dummy load plugged in. This just the no end of the coax there. 160 meters, huge SWR. 40 meters, huge SWR. 20 meters, huge SWR. 10 meters. So it's doing the thing. So I think I did it right. And now that we're all calibrated, we can go ahead and solder the bottom board to the top. So let's do that now. These guys take a lot of heat, so be patient. All right. And after it's had a chance to cool, we clean. Then we can go ahead and hook everything back up to our dummy load just to test to make sure everything still works. That's good on 160. Let's try 40. Looking good there. Let's go to 17. Looking good there. And let's try 10. Looking good there. Doing great. And now the last thing we need to do is simply go ahead and put our mini SWR meter inside its little case. So we're going to start with the male side. You should just be able to kind of force it in and it snaps in just like that. How neat is that? Beautiful.